And just hang on, everybody. We will be going live here. Actually, we're kind of live, I guess, here in the next minute and a half or so. Have some great prizes we're giving away today. We have some amazing guests, including astronaut Greg H Johnson. So that'll be a lot of fun to be asking some questions there and all kinds of good stuff. So hang on as everybody comes into the room here. And like I said, we'll be giving away some great prizes, including some badges, those stinking badges. We have some socks. We have an Amazon Fire TV Cube, all kinds of great stuff. All right. Well, let's get the party started here. And let's see. And I apologize, everybody. I think we're having a little technical difficulty here. Let's see. Looks like the hang on one second, everybody. Sure, just when I thought I was good at doing this, then I'm not. For those of you who are joining us on other platforms, please just hang on for just a second here. Oh, I see. All right. Well, I apologize, everybody. I hope you can hear me here. Hang on a second.
Hi, Marlo.
How about now?
Woo! Yay!
Oh my goodness. I have tested that 100 times. And of course, when we go live, so I actually switched computers, if you can tell.
I was gonna say it looks different. It sounds a little different, but hey, we're connected.
We
Yay,
are connected.
technology.
Are we okay? Are you hearing me okay?
I am hearing you okay.
All right. Well, fantastic. So, Michelle, I didn't get a chance to actually introduce you. So I guess we're going to do that right now. And by the way, people who are joining us, please know that we will be giving away some prizes. We had to do a quick little thing because we had a technical glitch. But we're going to get through this okay. So Michelle Lucas, very good friend of mine. We actually met for the first time because of today.
5 years ago.
Actually, it's 4 years ago. This is the 5th one.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So, yes. So you just have to kind of count that back the right way. But yeah, we were at the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs. And what were we there for?
So the big Space Symposium that happens normally every year in March. This year it's going to happen actually over Halloween because of what's going on in the world. But it's really the who's who of space. Everybody's there. And it was such an awesome place to be able to launch National Astronaut Day with you and our friends from Fisher Space Pen and some of our friends who have actually been into space.
Yes, it was fantastic. It was a great day. And we have some people that are saying hello to you, Michelle, and I guess to National Day Calendar as well. Oh yeah. Mentioning the meteor shower tonight. Are you going to get on and watch that?
I'm hoping so. The weather here has been iffy.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that the weather will be good. It's actually very interesting. My next door neighbor has mentioned that she's interested in watching as well. I happened to be able to point out Starlink to her one night.
Oh, very nice.
Now she's looking up a lot, and I love that. And so we're hoping the weather will hold and we'll stay socially distanced on our decks. But
fantastic. And by the way, for those of you joining us, we are giving away some great prizes, including the Fire TV Cube. Many of you who've joined us before have seen these before. You get to pick a number between 1 and 10,000 today. 1 in 10,000. You can pick 3 times. And so pick your numbers, everybody. You get to pick 3 times during the broadcast. And whoever's the closest, or whoever gets the number correctly, the person who gets the number will get this Fire TV Cube. We're also giving away some other great prizes today. If you ask questions, a little bit later, you're going to have some chance to ask questions. We have all kinds of great patches, including the National Astronaut Day patch, the original National Astronaut Day patch. I have a couple of these, so we'll be giving these away. All you have to do is ask questions. And we'll bring those, and you also have the opportunity to ask questions of our special guest here in a little bit. The winners, by the way, will be announced afterwards, everybody. So we have a team of people that are watching. We're just going to give away random prizes to people, and then also the person who wins will be notified after the broadcast. So pick a number between 1 and 10,000. And Michelle, you get the honors. And by the way, it's on Giving Tuesday. I threw the little thing across the bottom there. Michelle is the founder of Higher Orbits. And actually, before we announce our guest, why don't you give us like the 15-second snippet of Higher Orbits?
Sure. So Higher Orbits is a nonprofit that uses space to inspire students with STEM. And we have students across the country work with an astronaut for multiple days in person and compete to have their science flown to space. And we are lucky today to have one of those astronauts join us.
All right. Well, let's do that right now with no further ado.
So it's my honor to introduce to all of you astronaut Greg H. Johnson. And yes, the H is important because it's Trivia Tuesday, the year that Greg was selected. There was also another Greg Johnson, Greg C. Johnson. We've got Greg H, a.k.a. Box here. And Fox has flown on 2 space shuttle flights. He's an incredibly accomplished pilot, but he's the one who's been in space. So I'll let him tell you his stories. It's such an honor to have him here, and he is out of this world inspiring. Our students love him with Higher Orbits, and I'm excited for you all to hear from him.
Thanks for joining us, Astronaut Johnson. So I'm going to ask the first question. Where did the nickname Box come from?
Oh, wow. You're really going right out the gate with the questions.
Go right in there for you.
Okay. So the interesting story that I tell kids is if there was a box in Nevada that was a restricted area and you weren't allowed to fly your fighter jet into the box and be debriefed for 3 days on what you might not have seen in there, you could get a call sign. But I can't confirm or deny the existence of the box or the lieutenant. But the real story is, no kidding, it's about cardboard. Operation Desert Storm back in 1991. I redeployed ahead of our squadron. It took them 6 months to redeploy back to the States. And so my stuff was left in 2 cardboard boxes that had Johnson on it. And so all my fighter pilot buddies were walking by those 2 boxes for 6 months. And my call sign changed from TJ, which was Throttle Johnson, which is another story, to Box. And it was cemented by the time they got back to the States.
Amazing. Well,
even my backseater was calling me Box. So
it's a great nickname. And I'm sure you're probably noticing I have a little bit of a different background going on right now. I'm actually in my office now, and you notice that the stuff that I have hanging around in my office is somewhat related to space. So
yeah, that's cool, especially the second backdrop. I can verify to everybody that you did have the mic working 15 minutes ago and everything was fine, and then all of a sudden it just went kaput right at the time we started.
It's unbelievable how those things happen sometimes.
So I've got my Celebrate Every Day t-shirt on.
Yes.
So why don't you tilt down and I'll check out. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there we go. I'll turn the right way here. So
okay,
we all are celebrating today. So
yeah, Marlo, if you tilt your camera down a little bit, we'll be able to see you a little better. There you go.
All right, perfect.
Oh, maybe not.
Yeah, it doesn't want to cooperate.
I guess that's as good as it's going to get for the emergency thing that we had to go through here. So, all right, everybody, if you have questions of Astronaut Johnson, go ahead and put them in the area that you can type into there, because we're able to see those as well. If you want to join us, I'm going to put the place that you have to go through. Go to Chrome and then just put in StreamYard.com/BM3F4XJ8ES, something real simple for everybody, right? But if you do that, you'll actually be able to correspond with Astronaut Johnson directly. So if you want to ask him a direct question, that would be great to do that. So, all right. And
I have a question real quick, if you don't mind, because I was on the National Daily earlier, and we were talking about, they brought up that today is Cinco de Mayo, and since it's Trivia Tuesday, I was trying to give them some trivia and tie space in everywhere that I could. And I mentioned that we fly tortillas in space instead of bread, but they asked me a question I didn't know since I haven't enjoyed them myself in space. Flour or corn?
Oh, flour.
That's what I was thinking.
And I made a really cool space hamburger with the tortillas before they ran out. Tortillas are awesome. You can take a Velcro clip and just stick it anywhere. So you could be, chomping on a tortilla while you're working the robotic arm or whatever. But also, we're in a microgravity environment, so things stick to the tortilla and they don't fall off. So I built myself a burger with squeezy cheese and a nice little warmed up dehydrated burger patty, which doesn't sound very appetizing, but it was really, really good. Put a little ketchup and mustard on it, and I had a space hamburger. It's really fun.
Amazing.
I should have taken a photo of it. I took thousands of photos, but I didn't take a photo of that space hamburger that was really my favorite meal.
So I'm going to put some of the comments across the bottom there.
I am loving the one you have up there right now.
Yes. So who is the second best astronaut from Ohio?
So, there are a lot of Ohio astronauts, so I can't claim to be the second best astronaut. But that is one of my 2 home states. And so I've spent quite a bit of time in Wapakoneta, where Neil Armstrong grew up. At the Great Lakes Science Center, I was up at NASA Glenn for about 15 months and got to know a lot of the different Ohio astronauts over the years. And so I think of, Neil Armstrong's on this side of the range and, Box Johnson on this side of this range, but at least we're in the same club. How about that?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. When did you, this is from Dina Wentz. When did you know that you wanted to be an astronaut? This is from Jonah, age 7.
Wow, Jonah, that's really an awesome question. Believe it or not, it was when I was 7 years old. Your age. I was watching a black and white TV when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. I remember it like the handful of moments that you remember in a lifetime. And at that very moment at my grandparents' house, I was inspired. And so 50 years ago, I guess that means that I'm 47, right?
Right, totally.
Yes. All right. So next question. Let's see. From Morgan, Astronaut Johnson, is it hard to get used to gravity once you're back on Earth?
That's a great question. It's a transition. When we get up to space, it takes a while for us to get our space legs. And when we get back down on the ground, it takes a couple days to get used to the gravity field again. One of the funny stories, the NASA administrator, who actually was one of those inspiration moments for me 20 years prior, he came to congratulate me after STS-123, my first shuttle flight. I had my 10-year-old daughter in this arm, and I had a Diet Coke in this hand. And so as Mike Griffin reached out to shake my hand, normally you do this switcheroo, you do this thing and then shake the hand. But since my daughter was there, I just released the Diet Coke because I thought it'd stay there. So back in 2008, I dropped the Diet Coke all over the NASA administrator's Cole Haan shoes. So we get recalibrated. We get recalibrated after. I mean, we're increasingly getting more and more recalibrated, but it is a process. They won't let us drive for at least a couple days.
That's a great story, by the way.
Yeah, Dom Gorey from that flight when he was a rookie, his wife Wendy told me that he tried to dive out of his hotel room bed to go to the bathroom. And so he dove out of the bed and crashed face first on the ground. So another example of getting used to gravity when you get back.
So Jessa Weber, what's the coolest part about being in space?
Well, I think microgravity, zero gravity, if you will, is amazing. It makes work fun. Play is more fun. You can do things that you can't do here on the ground. You can move huge objects. Probably my favorite moment of all was in my second flight. And it was a 20-minute period where I had a teleconference with my wife and kids on the ground. And we started off right around the Great Lakes where I grew up. And then we floated across the eastern United States, across the Atlantic, across Europe, the Med, and eventually to Madagascar. So during that 20 minutes, I was in the cupola looking down at the planet, talking into a laptop with my wife and 3 kids. They were talking about their worlds, and I was sharing the experience of being in space with them. And it's a 20-minute period of time that I'll never forget. It's absolutely beautiful.
Remember, everybody, we are giving away the Fire TV Cube. We got to bribe people to be on when I'm here, Astronaut Johnson. I'm just saying. So I have to give away prizes. So pick a number between 1 and 10,000. You get 3 chances. And whoever gets closest or gets the number exactly will actually win this Fire TV Cube. We're also giving away some great patches. So just ask questions, and we'll pick winners at random through this program here to get some patches. We have socks. In fact,
those are cool.
They are cool. We'll be giving away some of these. It's too bad that we're sold out of the ones that I normally wear. Whoops. I'm not going to get up high enough. I have actually got socks on today, but we are sold out of these things. So we can't give away any of those. You like that, don't you? Yeah. I'm too old to be doing those types of things. All right. Kristen, how many times have you been in space? Oh, from Jenna.
Okay, so that's a trick question. Greg Johnson has been in space 3 times. Greg H Johnson went on 2, and Greg C Johnson went on 1. So I've been twice. 2 32-day missions. I was actually at a trivia contest at the Great Lakes Science Center about 8 years ago, and it was a Yuri's night, and the venue was who can you be smarter than an astronaut? So it was like the Family Feud where everybody had a push thing, and so I pushed immediately. How many flights has Greg Johnson? Boom! I hit 2. No, wrong.
Well played.
Yeah, that was well played.
What is your favorite planet?
What is my favorite planet? It's the one that they tried to take out of the club, Pluto.
Really?
Yeah, I'm very interested. It's got an irregular, non-circular orbit. It's super far away. We've recently visited the dwarf planet, and I think it's back in the club again. But I think Pluto's, it also represents the outside edge of our solar system, which we're going to be to someday.
Yeah. With
people.
So Owen, age 6, asked, "What happens when an astronaut falls in space?"
Well, since if you're in zero gravity, you really can't fall because there's nothing that will pull you down to the earth to make you fall. So you'll just float there. We tip upside down. If somebody bumps you, you can get knocked, rotated around on your axis, but you can't fall in zero gravity.
So we have a ton of questions coming in, so I don't mean to just rapid fire these, but we'll try to get through as many as we can.
I'll try to be very succinct.
Yeah, okay. What does zero gravity feel like? What does it do to the body?
It's magical. We grow taller. Our hair stands up on, and my hair is pretty short, but some of the ladies with longer hair, their hair really gets big. Katie Coleman was up with me on my second flight, and she had the Medusa head for a while. It changes our eyesight. My eyesight actually got better, but I know other astronauts, their eyes got worse, and it actually didn't completely reverse itself when they got back to the Earth, which is being studied by the Human Research Program. We can move things that you can't move here on the ground. It's really magical. It's like Alice's Wonderland, where the rules are just different in space. It's really fun.
Fran asked, does Saturn seem closer when you're in space?
Saturn is also one of my favorite planets because I've actually seen it and seen the rings through a telescope, and that's really exciting. But we'll call it second favorite. But no, we're not very much closer to Saturn in low Earth orbit than if we were just standing on the Earth. So, and we didn't observe Saturn because we didn't have telescopes to look out the window. But we're much, Saturn is millions and millions and millions of miles away, and we're only 250 miles off the surface of the planet.
Hey, Marla.
Yes.
There's a really great question at 217 about sleeping.
Yes, I was just actually going to show that.
Sorry. I just...
Do you have a favorite planet, Michelle?
Well, I always like to tell people that when I was their age, Pluto was a planet. But right now, my favorite planet is our home planet, Earth. I'm rather of everything we have here.
Really excellent answer.
How was that
oh my goodness.
A miscongeniality answer?
Oh, yeah.
So Emily wants to know what it's like to sleep in space.
So again, zero gravity. We don't have beds like we hear of on the Earth because you can't stay in them. You'd float out of them. So we zip ourselves into these sleeping bag-like hammocks that hold our bodies into the hammock, and then we attach that hammock anywhere you want, on the ceiling, on the wall, on the floor, even suspended. I spent several times suspended on the flight deck of the space shuttle from one side to the other with just nothing there. And so you're just floating in the middle of nowhere. It's really comfortable. I highly recommend zero gravity as a retirement kind of community because there's not going to be any broken hips, and the sleep was very, very comfortable.
Very cool. And if you're just joining us, remember you can pick a number between 1 and 10,000. 1 in 10,000 for your chance to win the Fire TV Cube. So make sure you get your chances in for that. Your picks in for that. All right. Next
5,634.
Yeah, there you go. You can't win, right? Kirsten wants to know, is it scary to be in space?
Scary is probably the wrong word. We were concerned and had a healthy respect for the launch and the landing experience. It was Mr. Toad's wild ride on the way up, and on the way back, we're slowing down for about an hour, and it really got you thinking, especially when you're looking out the window from the pilot's seat and seeing 3,000-degree plasma hitting the space shuttle. But when we were in space, it was really comfortable, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I was just in a world of wonderment and excitement.
So I've never been able to ask this to anybody of an astronaut, so I'm going to ask you, I guess. So your first look back on Earth, what was that like?
It was a spiritual experience. Our planet is so beautiful, and the photographs and the videos just don't do it justice. And when Michelle said Earth was her favorite planet, I guess maybe most of us here on Earth believe that to be true. And the view of our planet from space changes you. And I tell kids this a lot, and it's not my original thinking, but it's so profound to me, is that when you look at our planet in its entirety and you're not on it, it's like a spaceship of its own, an ecosystem, a closed loop ecosystem where all the people that you love around the world are interconnected on this spaceship Earth. And it makes us want everyone to take care of our spaceship and take care of each other, be crew members and not passengers along for the ride. And it's really profound.
Robert Beamer has a great quote for that. If you don't leave the Earth a conservationist, you'll certainly come back one.
That's exactly right. And my youngest, my daughter, 22-year-old, when she was 13, 14, she was really into that stuff. Super smart. She's going to medical school this fall.
Right.
And not to brag, but she's just awesome. But she was way ahead of me on this recycling thing. And so, of course, now, we've all evolved as a spaceship Earth to take better care of our planet.
So obviously, this next question knows a little bit about you. Andrew Hart, what technology did you find the most handy on the space shuttle as well as the F-15?
Okay, so on the space shuttle, the space shuttle, there were 2,000 switches in the space shuttle. So it was not the latest technology because it takes a long time to build a spaceship and get it flying. But it was a workout horse and very highly successful. I would say, though, that the system that allowed you to rendezvous or join onto the space station was quite incredible, and it had multiple redundant sensors from different systems that allowed us to make a precise docking within 2 inches of the space station, and the last 600 feet is totally manual, or was. The F-15, I flew the F-15E, and one of my favorite parts of the F-15E were its avionics. And Honeywell is an amazing company, and they have their fingers in a lot of different technologies. But the color and the monochrome multi-purpose displays were actually super incredible. And when I look back on them, they were more advanced than the shuttle cockpits that we had in 2008 and 2011.
So if you're just joining us, everybody, this broadcast is for National Astronaut Day. And of course, we have astronaut Greg Johnson here and Michelle Lucas. And Michelle, this next question is going to be for both of you. So my son's friend wants to be an astronaut. What should he study as a college degree? But before you answer that, Michelle, you should tell us a little bit. Give us, 30 seconds, a minute of your story.
Okay.
Why you're not an astronaut.
Oh, that's okay. So I fell in love with space as a little girl, and I went to school and I studied STEM. Before it was STEM, it was math and science, and went to NASA, worked in safety, and then I worked in mission control, and then I was a technical instructor for astronauts, and I actually got to train Box for his first space shuttle flight. I always wanted to go into space. And somewhere along the way, I found out that I actually have a medical condition that I'm okay, but it does preclude me from becoming a NASA astronaut for now. So I'm holding out hope and cheering on Blue Origin and others, as right now we have, and normally I know this number exactly. And so 570-ish people who've been into space.
Yep.
And I look forward to when that number becomes much greater, because people like Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic and SpaceX are flying more people into space. And so I hope to be one of those.
So I want to hear your lemons to lemonade story here. How you when you got that news that you couldn't go into space, I know it had to be devastating for you. But what happened over the course of the next year that changed your life?
So I tell kids that you see the cartoons, like eating lots of ice cream because they're really sad. I mean, all I had ever wanted to do was be an astronaut. I had not been even eligible to apply yet because I had to have certain educational requirements to apply and certain work requirements. When I got to that point, that was when I found out about my medical condition. I was really sad for a while, and I ate a lot of cupcakes and pizza and donuts. I'm not an ice cream eater, but I ate a lot of those things. And it didn't happen overnight, but then I realized that I'm a little girl from the south side of Chicago who the first time I was on an airplane, I was in high school. It was also my mother's first time on an airplane. And our idea of travel was to drive an hour and a half to Six Flags Great America for vacation. And now I was working in a job where I was working day in and day out with people like Astronaut Johnson. And I was traveling to Russia and Germany and Japan to work with the flight controllers and astronauts there and instructors there. And I realized that, you know what, maybe we don't all get to go to space as astronauts for NASA, but we can all be part of that journey and explore the universe together. And so I get to live vicariously through people who are my friends. But we are fortunate that astronauts, one of the wonderful things about them is they are willing to share their journey with all of us. And so we can all be astronauts together and explore the universe, even if all but 570-ish of us have to keep our feet on planet Earth.
So I know I shared
a great answer.
I think that this is such an amazing thing. So 570 astronauts. How many of you, 570-ish, right? How many of those astronauts have you been involved with in their training?
So that's a question that especially I've been out for a handful, 7 years now. I have met, trained, or worked with in some capacity, probably about half. And that doesn't mean necessarily at NASA in a traditional fashion. I now work with people through higher orbits and Unified Space Agency, but I would say half-ish. And Marlo, you keep bringing this up, so I'm going to have to pull out the almanac of astronauts and highlight so I have an actual number. So if anybody's out there going, she's full of it, she's only,
No, I could verify that easily because I've been working alongside you for, probably more than half your life. So. Oh,
you're sweet that you say it's half my life.
Well,
I love you.
but no, seriously, I was number 471. So the last 100 astronauts that went to space have happened after me. So you covered most of that territory except for the brand new classes, but many of them have yet to fly. But then all the people, the shuttle people, I know you worked with the shuttle people from Group 7 and on, or Group 8 at least. So I think that's the plurality of the astronauts. I mean, they came in when we started flying the shuttle by the numbers. And so and then you've worked with a lot of the former astronauts from Apollo and Skylab. So I bet it's half of them.
And let's be clear, I pinch myself every day that I get to do this because I am a geek. For anybody who's been watching any of the cast, I've kind of tried to move around in my office because it's all covered with space swag. And some of it is 40-some years old. When I was a little girl, because I have always loved it. And I feel so fortunate to get to work with these incredible human beings. But part of what's so extra special to me is that they're human beings. And so we get to see them in ways that I saw the Portland Sea Dogs today tweeted about how Chris Cassidy, who's in space, came and threw out a first pitch once. Well, yeah, you know what? Astronauts like baseball too. And I suspect are missing baseball right now. And so those commonalities that exist, I think are absolutely beautiful.
Chris Cassidy's number 500, by the way.
Is he number 5? Okay.
Yeah, he and I flew together to Neil Armstrong's memorial to Wapakoneta, and he told me that. Hey, Michelle, I just noticed. Oh, no, it's the other side. This patch, STS-123, there's a montage right there up on your wall. Cool. That's really cool.
So some of my favorite space swag is when crews fly into space, they take patches with them and they come back and they give to some of their instructors and flight controllers these montages that have photos, a flown patch. And for all of you parents out there, I know you say you have, there we go. Nice.
Notice the name on the bottom.
Clayton Henderson.
That's the reason I have this actually, because I had to have one with my name on it. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
Parents out there, you say you have no favorite child. That's adorable. My mother says the same thing. We'll believe it. Okay. You're not supposed to have a favorite space crew either. If you were an instructor, you're supposed to be like a parent and have no favorites. STS-123 was my favorite.
I won't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody.
Okay,
Now, this montage, yeah, I'm terrible at this, is one of my most favorite space
Cool.
swag possessions.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
Fran's question, I think you touched on. I
We
think
got
you touched
derailed.
on it, Michelle. But I would say that your child should do what they love, do what they're passionate about, because they will do well. I always try to tell kids not to do something that you think you're supposed to do, so that allows you to be an astronaut. There are astronauts with a variety of degrees, and some are not even in STEM fields. But what they do is they do what they love, and they do it well. And as we expand the people, the space-minded people who actually are flying into space, eventually colonizing the moon and Mars someday, they're going to come from all walks of life, even attorneys.
Yeah, we haven't had a space attorney yet.
Yeah, we haven't. That's why I said that.
But just to clarify real quick for that question, for anybody right now who is in college or close to that age, right now, STEM degree is a requirement, bachelor's and master's. But to Box's point, do what you love. I mean, if you look at the astronauts who have flown in space, yeah, they're amazing that they're astronauts now, but they were amazing before that. You know, Rick Linehan was an incredible veterinarian. Kate Rubins was an incredible virus hunter. You know, she studied Ebola in the Congo. So go do what you love and do it really, really well.
And most careers are STEM these days. We're in a digital fluency generation. But I have to tell you, the classes keep getting, the applicant pool gets larger and larger and larger. So NASA keeps putting on these new requirements. Masters were not required when I applied.
This is the first time they are.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Logan, from Logan Cook, what is your favorite memory from your time as an astronaut?
I sort of answered this one, but I'll give you. I told you I answered it saying that it was a video teleconference with my family where we spent 20 minutes going from Michigan to Madagascar. But probably the favorite moment professionally was when we installed the alpha magnetic spectrometer. Each member of the crew had a particular part in that, from installing it to turning it on to attaching it with a spacewalk. And so I was the guy who got to attach it robotically onto the top of the truss, something that we way overtrained for, but it was partly because we were reaching over behind our backs to install it. So, and there wasn't a lot of clearance with the other objects that were in the way. But the second that I didn't crash that thing into the truss, you know, $2 billion payload, I'd never make that much in my entire life. So I was very happy that it made it there. And Mike Fink was extremely happy when he turned the thing on and it worked.
April asks, what is the hardest part of training?
It's being away from your friends and family. It is a big time commitment for the astronauts that fly from Russia. I mean, they're away from their families for years at a time, but all in from the initial training to, you know, kind of the bachelor's level training all the way to graduate school. When you get on a particular mission, there was a lot of time that we were in different countries, in different cities around the nation. And we didn't have this fancy technology that we have in isolation today.
So I've
I
heard you,
chuckled because I was waiting for him to say having to deal with Michelle's classes. So thanks for.
so I hear you're the inspiration for this video I'm about to play.
That is me, actually. That was my debut movie.
Totally can see this.
I didn't know you had an aspiration to actually ride them like bulls. My goodness.
It's like
So
the space
Air Force
version
fighter
of
pilot.
Airplane.
Oh, I love
That's great.
EJ, can you see the northern lights from space?
Absolutely. And since I'm from, you know, part of my upbringing was in northern Michigan, on the high areas and the northern latitudes, you can see the northern lights on the ground. But from space, they are even more spectacular. You not only see the greens, but you see the reds that you only see in a textbook. I've got a great photo looking out the space station at the Aurora Borealis. Unbelievable.
I would imagine as you're watching. Go ahead.
Pardon?
You can see the southern as well, right? Most people don't know that there's southern lights as well, because there's not as many humans down there to see them.
That's interesting. And I guess if I did see the southern lights, I probably thought there were northern lights. But no, when I was looking for northern lights, I was always looking out the north. So yeah, I never did see the southern lights. That's an interesting piece of trivia. But obviously you've gotten that from some other astronauts who had that experience. Very interesting.
I would imagine watching them too, because you're moving at such a high rate of speed gives it a different visual appearance. I mean, you can see them moving when you're on Earth, of course, but when you're traveling at the rate of speed that you are, that has to be just absolutely breathtaking.
It is. It is, and you know we're going really fast. We're going 17,500 miles an hour, zipping around the Earth every 90 minutes. But the sense of motion from 250 miles away is a little less than you might think. So we could get a good view when we fly overhead at night. You can sometimes see the space station for 6 minutes as it's flying overhead. So the astronauts can also see you for that same 6 minutes. So when you're looking up there, they're looking back down at you. So you can get a really good look of places that you love.
Next question from Michelle Vega. If you can go back to your first time going in space, would you change anything?
Well, that's a great question, and I don't think I've ever gotten a question like that. I don't think so. It was an amazing experience. Of course, it was a culmination of my dream job since I was 7 years old. And I was ready, I was prepared, but I didn't know what it was going to look like on the other side. So I had a healthy respect for the launch. I was surprised, even though I'd been trained for almost 10 years, I was completely surprised by the craziness of a launch in the space shuttle. So I don't think so. I mean, maybe if I could have done it a little bit sooner so I could get more flights in before the shuttle retired, but I'm very grateful for the 2 flights that I got.
Cool. Do you dream in your sleep?
Oh, yeah. You dream in your sleep. Absolutely. Vivid dreams, by the way.
So you're thinking more vivid than what you have on Earth, or?
No, but they're different. They were different. They were more vivid. They were things that I don't dream here on the Earth. Because you are in a completely new environment. I mean, you all might have noticed that your dreams changed when we were in isolation. Same sort of thing.
Okay. What time zone do you adhere to in space?
Well, that's a great question. So we had 3 different clocks running. We had mission elapsed time. We had our own local time that we did time phone calls, for example, and then we have Zulu time, Greenwich Mean Time. So depending on what your activity is or what crew you were on, you adhere to different measures of time. My oldest son, turned 18 on my first flight, and I called him on his birthday, and it actually wasn't his birthday yet in Houston. It was Zulu time. And so he said, "Dad, it's not my birthday yet. It's not till tomorrow." And then we realized together that his birthday actually lasted 48 hours as I went through all 24 time zones. And so he said, on my 18th birthday, I've got to get twice as many presents. Pretty smart kid.
We may have answered this already. How long do you have to study to be an astronaut?
The undergraduate training, when we first become astronaut candidates, is about a year and a half-ish. And then when you're training for a flight, it can be anywhere for very, short shuttle flights, about a year, to long station flights, up to 3 years of continuous training before the flight. And then you have all the recurrency training in the middle. So quite a bit of study. We're kind of an inch deep, but a mile wide as far as learning different things about systems and our universe, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm getting some comments about the socks.
I've got some cooler socks, and I wish I brought them with me. Okay, yeah. They're not cooler, but they're equally cool.
Oh, my goodness. So that would be great to see. So,
I don't have them with me. It shows an atom. It says atoms. They
never
make up everything.
Atom?
Yeah. Never talk to an atom. They make up everything.
So do you want to talk a little bit about, maybe your affiliation, Astronaut Johnson, with higher orbits, and a little bit about how you see the importance of higher orbits? And then Michelle, talk a little bit about how it works to have higher orbits. How do you get higher orbits in your community? So you two discuss that a little bit, and I'll look through some more questions here, okay?
Oh, that's great. So I've been working with higher orbits a number of years. I've seen firsthand the great work that Michelle and her team is doing. The curriculum is a couple days long, and it goes through how to work as a team member, how to solve problems together in an interactive way, and presentation skills, and then ultimately the winner of the winner eventually gets to take their science onto the space station. So it's an incredible journey, and like I said, I can't say more about the importance and the impact that Michelle has on these kids. And once they're in the club, they stay in the club for life. So she's got a huge group that she continues to communicate with and inspire.
Well, thank you, Box. And we're so grateful to have your support. I told you I fell in love with space as a kid. I was fortunate to get a scholarship to go to space camp. It changed my life. I found what I call it finding my tribe, other kids who were like me. And so the goal with Go for Launch is to bring a space-inspired STEM event to students all across the country. We have events East Coast, West Coast, North, South. You can go to our website and check on Go for Launch to see where they're at. We're always coming to new places. We've been to North Dakota. And had a great time in Fargo. We are actually coming to Las Vegas this fall, and I mentioned that because we talked about that on the National Daily earlier today. We are always open to having new partners, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to these students are our future STEMists and explorers. They are the future astronauts, our future workforce. And with Go for Launch, we're actually not trying to turn them all into rocket scientists. You don't have to be a STEM rock star to come and have fun at Go for Launch. It's packaged in a way that it's inspiring. You get to hear stories from people like Astronaut Johnson for the whole event. It's not a 1-hour video chat or a 40-minute talk, 12 questions and out the door. They're there as a mentor along with other space and STEM mentors. And so it's really, when Bach talks about his training being an inch deep and a mile wide, there's a lot of great STEM out there, and there's things that can engage for a little bit. This is a little bit more of the deeper. We don't get to, interact with quite as many students, but it's a deeper connection. And I feel fortunate that I have the only child I have. I'm surprised he hasn't come over. He has 4 legs and fur. His name is Guinness. He has his own hashtag, Guinness Wonder Mutt. That's my only child. But I now have, 1,000+ space kids. I've gotten the moniker Space Mom, and I really care about these kids and where they're headed. And so we love to be able to help and support them in their goals and their dreams, whether it's to do space flight or something else. We just want them to dream big.
And you do a great job, and it does have an impact. Even over the short period of time, you see the difference in these kids and the long mentoring that you're talking about. I've seen kids come back and they get so much from your course.
I know I had the honor to be at the Fargo, North Dakota one for a half a day. And I was impressed when I got there. And afterwards, talking to some of the students that attended, so inspired, just so inspired by your work. So, it's a great thing.
Well, it's interesting because I'm reading some of the comments and I see one that says it seems like everyone who works with space or exploration always dreamed of doing that as a child. Are there any who fell into? And the reality is probably a lot of people who became astronauts have dreamed of it since a child. Doesn't mean that they all pursued it from the time they were a child. I mean, I've worked with several astronauts who are like, oh yeah, it seemed like kind of a cool idea, but I also thought about, oh, maybe I'll be president or something. And then I went through school and went, oh, okay, maybe I could do this. There's a pilot who just loved flying and went to the Naval Academy and, became a test pilot and this, that, the other, and just finally got to where never wanted to be an astronaut, but just wanted to fly the next fastest, coolest thing. That meant flying the space shuttle. And so, Yeah, a lot of people have that passion as a kid, and that's why they go into it. I will tell you that the question I used to hate getting asked by kids was, how much money do you make working at NASA? And my answer was always that my dog is spoiled. I have a roof over my head. Life is good. Because the reality is we don't do it for the money. And I think that is something that is a little bit unique to the aerospace industry. Is in some ways you have to have a passion for it. You're paid well, but yeah, you could go into petroleum engineering as an engineer and make way more money. But almost everybody who's in the space industry does it because you can't put a price tag on how special it is to be part of something that is, sorry, I'm going to be cheesy, truly out of this world.
Very cool. All right, more questions. Hi, Greg. Can you bowl in space? You are our favorite astronaut. This is from Holly.
So there's a little backstory to this. I didn't realize that Holly was going to join us, but she and her husband Pip and I were in a bowling league. Before I went on my first flight, they presented me with a moon bowling ball, which I still have in my study. And I've not put holes in it. It's just something to show people. I actually jokingly asked Dom Gorey on STS-123 if I could take it up with me, because an astronaut's allowed to take 2 personal items. But of course, a bowling ball was just a little bit too heavy and a little bit too much volume. Yeah. But it's good to see you online, Holly. You can't bowl in space. Zero gravity bowling. That's different.
Justin Wesley, what are the odds of alien life outside our planet?
I'd be surprised if there wasn't some sort of intelligent life. With the billions and billions of galaxies that are out there, I'd be very surprised. Now, I can't predict what they'd look like. They probably wouldn't look like ET, but they might. We don't have any data to indicate that. But I would say that it's very unlikely, in my mind, that there wouldn't be some form of life out there.
How hard? This is from Seth. How hard is it to keep physically active in space?
Well, that's a good question. We're obviously always really active, because I used to describe the space shuttle as sort of a sprint, and living on the space station is kind of like a marathon. But it's continuous activity. We only got a half day off each week for the shuttle crew, so we're very active. But the stress on the body, of course, we're not fighting gravity, so we had to artificially stress our bodies by riding a bicycle, running on a treadmill, or lifting weights. In my case, we didn't have the ARED, the Advanced Resistance Equipment Device or something. Anyway, it's basically a space station gym, and the shuttle people didn't use the ARED, but the space station people do, and they lift weights for hour and a half a day. So both aerobic and anaerobic exercise to keep our bodies fit for when we come back.
So do you have a dumbbell with 2,000 pounds on each side that you just lift with?
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
All right, from John R. Sports, did you do a spacewalk? What is your feeling about the overview effect?
Okay, so the overview effect I kind of talked about a little bit. It's a spiritual experience for almost every astronaut. This sense of how special our planet is. Regarding spacewalks, I supported 9 spacewalks, 5 on my first flight and 4 on my second. And I ran people around on the robotic arm as they did spacewalks, but I never got to do one. When I left NASA in 2013, I had just started the spacewalk training and then went off to the private sector. So I never got to do that. But I don't have any regrets about it, but it would have been cool. And I've heard firsthand stories. By the way, one of the great spacewalkers in the astronaut corps, it's his birthday today, Doug Wheelock, Cinco de Mayo. So Doug Wheelock has his birthday on National Astronaut Day. Crazy.
And he's currently hanging out in Ohio.
He is. I actually talked to him this morning, wished him a happy birthday.
Very cool. From Brett, what is the average day like on the ISS? How is it different because light doesn't dictate days like it does on Earth?
Well, the days are scheduled 24 hours per day. I was never a space station expedition crew member, but I spent about 28 days on the space station observing how it worked. And Michelle actually has detailed knowledge about how the scheduling of the day goes. And so maybe she might have a couple words. But I would say in general, from what I observed, and of course, when we were a merged crew with the space station and the space shuttle, we could see each other's schedules, and we worked in support of each other. But do you have anything to say, Michelle, that would answer that question?
With the space station, especially now that we don't have space shuttles visiting, it's almost like a work day here on the ground. We schedule the crew for 8.5 hours of work a day. What's a little different for them is that they have 2.5 hours of exercise every day to keep their bodies healthy. It's 2 hours of work, an hour of resistive exercise, an hour of aerobic, and a half an hour to clean up and set up and all that. They get half a day off on Saturday and a whole day off on Sunday. And the reason it's different from when the space shuttle was there was when the space shuttle came, there were all these extra people and all this extra work. So it was lots of really busy days. Think about it like Christmas at your house or Hanukkah or whatever holiday you celebrate. And everybody comes in and there's all these events to do because everybody's there. Now it's a little bit more just, it's kind of an average June day hanging out. They have everything is scheduled and there's a timeline that they follow along. And they don't get to just decide what they want to do. There are things that are prescribed for them to do, but then they have things like you might have a task list at home to work on. Perhaps you have one because you've got extra time during quarantine. The crew has some things like that as well. And the time-wise, Box touched on earlier, we use GMT time. And so you sync your calendar to that. And for everybody on the ground, that means that the U.S. does not have the most enviable time to work in mission control with respect to when the crew is up, because the crew is up kind of in our overnight. But that's how they dictate days, GMT.
And that was interesting when we worked with the space station from the shuttle perspective, because we weren't always aligned with their schedule. We were actually 7 hours apart at the biggest span, but our time zones were shifting based on our reentry day. And so, yeah.
So I know we're pushing up to the top of the hour, Michelle and Astronaut Johnson. We still have questions. If you want to, we can certainly do this for a little longer if you want. I don't know what your time restraints are today. So
I can go on about another 10 more minutes, but I have a call coming up here a quarter past. So,
Michelle, you hanging out for another 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say do 5 more minutes of questions and then wrap up, and we should probably be good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Owen, who is 6, I know you've talked about this already, Astronaut Johnson, but this is a young person and wants to. Have you had to work outside the shuttle while in space? What was that like? So maybe a little bit, maybe more about the robotic arm that you were on.
Yeah, exactly, Owen. You asked, you framed it quite well for me, because I was working outside the shuttle using both the robotic arms on the space shuttle as well as the robotic arm on the space station. So we could remotely do work, kind of like we're all doing here in quarantine, and get things done. But of course, probably the most interesting work outside of the space shuttle were spacewalks. I never got to do a spacewalk, but I supported 9 of them, 5 on my first flight and 4 on my second.
This is an interesting question too. Brett, what was the launch like? Was it more shocking during launch or landing?
It was more shocking at launch. The space shuttle leaped off the ground like a wild animal. It was sensory overload, light, sound, acceleration, vibration. You could feel it through all of your senses. Now, I was on the inside.
Exactly like
that was my debut acting career when I was on the outside. But on the inside, it is quite a wild ride. STS-123 took off in the middle of the night, and we had an overcast deck in Florida, and it illuminated the Florida coast. And Michelle, you were there, so you saw it. Unbelievable energy going with these launches. And if you haven't seen a launch, that you've got to put that on your bucket list. It's unbelievable.
I will give the piece of advice that I give to everyone. Hi, Courtney. If you're ever offered the opportunity to go to a launch, go. It doesn't matter if there are humans on it, cargo on it, go. A launch is something you will never, ever forget. Now, I say that with the disclaimer of Kennedy Space Center is actually asking everybody to please not descend on Kennedy Space Center for the launch on May 27th due to what's going on in the world. But after that, when it's all safe to go to a launch.
Yep. So, Kelly Aarons, I am a middle school teacher, so what advice would you give students who want to pursue a career in the space industry?
And I will answer it the same way of a previous question. Do what you love. Do what you're passionate about. Do what excites you, such that you're really not working. You're doing what you love every day. You're not working. And nowadays, as we stretch our footprint out into space, to the moon, Mars someday, it's going to take all different skill sets. And so we can all eventually be space travelers.
And I'm going to expand on that just a little bit of leave doors open. Be open to new opportunities. If just because a class looks a little difficult or challenging, but you're interested, go for it, because you never know. And so having a wide variety of experiences is always a benefit, always a plus.
Absolutely.
Do you ever worry about space junk or other things hitting the shuttle?
Every day. The whole team NASA worries about space junk. We actually had a little micrometeoroid impact the window of the commander's window, not the pilot's window. I'm just kidding. But I teased Dom Gorey about this. But I was flying the space shuttle at the time. We had just undocked from the space station, and it hit the window and really made a significant divot in it. And we saw the we had 4 rookies that looked at this window, and we took photos of it and sent them back down. I think my biggest mistake with that was not calling my wife and telling her about it first, because she found about it on the press. So
didn't go well.
Lesson learned. How are you doing, Sue? Thanks for showing up. Sue is from went to my high school.
Okay, fantastic. And actually, we're going to leave our last question. Will be from our mutual friend Courtney. But before we get to her question, just remember, if you're just joining us or didn't hear earlier, we are giving away a Fire TV Cube today as well. Pick a number between 1 and 10,000, and whoever is the closest or who gets the answer correctly.
555.
Stop giving stuff away. All right, Courtney Jensen, she asked, what is the next achievable frontier for space travel? What needs to happen to get us there?
Well, the frontier that we're all united, I believe, the government and the private sector, is to get to the moon. And the goal is to be there in 2024. That's pretty lofty. But they just recently led a contract for the human lander last week. And I believe that we're going to at least get some equipment on the moon within the next few years. So the moon is it right now. Eventually it'll be Mars and then other places in our solar system.
Can I answer it slightly differently?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's also a twist to that. So that's the next place we go, so to speak. But I think the frontier of opening up the democratization of space, where you can buy a ticket, and we can debate whether that's true democratization or not yet. But the idea of opening up space travel to more than just the elite few, and please don't parse my words, because I know $250,000 still makes you the elite few if you can afford to buy a ticket. But the idea of it not just being government career astronauts who fly to space, I think that in many ways is a new frontier, because we can fly the people like Greg was talking about, the artists, the writers. And that's not to say we haven't had artists and writers. There are some amazing astronaut artists, writers, et cetera. But that's an additional frontier that's opening up. And sincerely, within the next couple of years, I suspect we will see most of those companies fly the first non-career astronauts into space.
Yeah, that was well said. And Virgin Galactic has already sent non-government astronauts into space. So we are right on the cusp of that. And that's a very good answer. Thank you.
All right. Well, we literally have hundreds of questions in the room yet, but I know space is our time. Space is infinite probably, but time is not for us, right? So I really appreciate both of you being here today. This was a fantastic hour that we have spent talking about space. I'm going to let the two of you kind of wrap up as well. Any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
Well, I want to thank you, Marlo, and you, Michelle, for what you did to put on this event, but this day. This has been a celebration around the country and the world. It's on social media. It highlights one element of the space program, the lucky folks that get to go on the end of the rock, the top of the rocket. But thank you so much for all the effort that you poured into this celebration.
Well, we thank you for inspiring us. Space inspires, and being able to hear the firsthand stories from those who have flown there. And we're thrilled to also celebrate those who help get you there. And so it's an honor to work with both of you. And Marlo, I believe, celebrate every day, especially in this world right now, where we all need something to be a little happier about. I love to celebrate every day. Thank you for this happy creation of yours. And I think the day I am most looking forward to after today's National Astronaut Day is June the 5th. You know what's June the 5th?
You're going to remind me, aren't you?
It is National Donut Day. And I really hope I can get myself a sprinkled donut by then.
Yeah. Hopefully the donut shops will be open to do that. So that'll be so. Thank you, Box.
I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I hope you all out there did as well.
All right. Take care, everybody. Oh, by the way, the number.
Actually, Box, you can leave off if you need to.
Yeah. He wants to hear
for a second.
You're actually very close.
I've got a couple minutes.
5520 is the number. Is the winning number today? 5520, which is so. There was probably a clue in there for somebody, so we'll see if anybody got that.
Somebody did, but I'm not going to say who because there might be more than one.
Yeah, so whoever was the first one to get that will actually win.
Gotcha.
The Fire TV Cube. So we'll be giving away a lot of other random prizes today as well. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on whenever we show up for the next broadcast, I guess. So take care, everybody.
Happy
Thank you all.
Day.
All right, bye-bye.